Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us across the fence. I'm Fran Stoddard. Somewhere in the range of 500 to 700 large Vermont farms have been shuttered or have no viable economic model. But the land is conserved and cannot be developed. So how can we assure this land continues to be part of a working landscape, provide economic health for their communities, and a living for a farmer or the landowner? That's a question Will Rapp has been contemplating. Rapp is the founder of Gardner Supply Company and the nonprofit Intervale Center. He's turned his creative and visionary effort to a new venture, Earthkeep Farmcommon, a regenerative model farm in Charlotte. Will Rapp joins me today along with the farm's Chief Operating Officer, Robin Jeffers. Thank you and welcome to you both.
Thank you, Fran.
Thanks. Good morning.
So, Will, you purchased this 583-acre farm last December. Many of our viewers might remember it as Nordic Farms. It's in a beautiful location in Charlotte. It was a model dairy farm in the past. What is the goal and your dream for it now?
This farm is an example of, as you noted, a lot of farms in Vermont that may not have the economic future that they once had as a dairy farm. And we have discovered some things like through the pandemic that our food system is not as secure as we'd like it to be. We are discovering things every day, like in the climate change world, that agriculture and our working landscape are critical to protecting the future of our atmosphere, but also adding negative greenhouse gas emissions to our atmosphere. About a third of our greenhouse gas emissions comes from agriculture. So farms are more important than ever to feed us and to essentially manage the environmental challenges we have. What Earthkeep Farm, formerly Nordic, is for us is really a potential model to look at a large farm that doesn't work economically as a dairy anymore, but could have a new model where we create essentially a new kind of diversified agriculture. And in the process of diversifying our agriculture, if we could also make it more regenerative, which would be an important step to solving climate change issues, that would be great.
So, how do you distinguish regenerative agriculture from sustainable agriculture, and why do you view regenerative agriculture as really the future of farming? Explain that term.
Yeah. So if we look at the history of agriculture, obviously 10,000 years humans have been producing food on the land. In the last 100 years or so, it's become industrialized. The process of industrializing our agriculture has really been incredibly productive in terms of the outputs and destructive in terms of the impact on the land. Where we are right now, whether it's organic, sustainable, regenerative, is we need to be accountable to having a positive impact on the land. Regenerative is really going beyond just the input framework of, let's say, organic, or the sustainability framework of trying to do no harm, moving toward actually improving the process of the soil health, the biodiversity, the water management, the surrounding communities, and even the impact of agriculture on the atmosphere from a climate change standpoint.
Terrific. And you know, you really hit the ground running with Earthkeep Farmcommon. Things are happening there right now. And Robin, why don't you just explain a little bit about what's going on at the farm?
Well, Fran, we have a lot going on. We have over 10 producers here, and we are growing a lot of grain. We're growing flowers. We're growing produce. Hemp is being grown here. Shrimp is raised here. Beverages are made here from the grain, from also from honey from our land, grapes and berries. There's just a lot going on the map that on your screen. You can see all those yellow areas are in grain. The dark green is actually forest, and the aqua color is water. So we're also doing habitat restoration and a lot of practices to take care of our land, as Will said.
So talk to us a little bit about diversified farming, what that means to you, and what are some of the value-added products that you're wanting to develop?
Good question. Diversified farming for us is having all of the major food groups being produced here and multiple producers here on our land. So we're trying to fulfill the 5 food groups to fill out a full calorie diet that's available locally. So, for example, shrimp is being produced here, and a value-added product of that is shrimp bisque. Grains are being produced here, becomes flour, it becomes malted grains that go into brewers and distilling beer and whiskey, a micro dairy for cheese making, vegetables, which can go on to be fermented veg or also enjoyed straightforwardly. Berries are being developed into a beverage called shrubly, which is a shrub made from apple cider vinegar and berry juice. So along that spectrum,
Yeah.
quite a
All kinds of things going on. And even on Thursday nights this summer, you've been open to the public, selling prepared foods and produce from Earthkeep Farmcommon farmers, and also other local farms and vendors. What's the focus there? Robin, go ahead, and we'll get back to Will in a second.
We wanted all of our producers here to be able to have a direct-to-consumer experience, and for and also to be transparent with the town. There's a lot of curiosity about the model that we're talking about and building here, and we wanted everyone in the town and to know about it and be able to come and visit, meet the producers, talk to them directly, buy their products directly, and sample them. And we've had a lot of success. It's been a lot of fun. The producers have enjoyed it, and certainly we've been well received.
Right, it's great getting people onto farms. So we talked about dairy farms and how they're struggling. They often diversify their operations with sugaring or logging outside of the growing season. Will, what's the difference about diversification today that you're talking about, and how and why should farmers really think about diversification now? And how differently?
Yeah, well, yeah. So you mentioned sort of typical ways that dairies, I mean, dairies have been 90% of our farm gate revenues. When I moved to Vermont 40 years ago, they were that. Now they're 65. They're probably going to go down to 40. So dairies are less of the economic impact long term than they were. And when those dairies diversified, they did it usually using natural resources, whether it's sugar bushes that they had or trees that they could cut down for logging. There wasn't a whole lot of systematic strategic intensity to it. And where we are now in diversification, I think, is in a new place, but the opportunity is greater. The need is to get more dairies shifted to other kinds of crops because the dairy industry just won't be as big as it once was. And the strategy has been set out by the Farm to Plate program, a 10-year framework for Vermont to be thinking about the future of its agricultural economy. And the relocalization of food that's been going on for the last 30, 40 years focused mainly on vegetables. Now we need to focus on those other food groups that Robin mentioned. The process of doing that is a lot more challenging because you have to invest in infrastructure, you have to invest in distribution, you have to access new markets. So the systematic strategy of building Vermont's farms to serve all of the calories we need requires an investment program and a strategic framing of that investment program that we're trying to reflect at Earthkeep, but also be a model for.
Fantastic. So that's a lot of that is the grain piece, right?
It is the grain piece, but it's also the integration, right? If we micro dairy there, we have grazing animals. Grazing animals are critical to improving soil to the highest level of fertility and life. So it's really going back to the early days of Vermont dairy farming, where, as you noted, there was lots of different kind of um, revenue diversification happening on the farms, which allowed a diversification in terms of the stewardship of the land.
So a lot of people think that, Vermont can rely on its reputation, its excellent reputation, and demand higher prices to make farming more viable. Is that the way to go, Will?
That is one way to go. That is certainly, Ben and Jerry's ice cream was certainly a pretty powerful flywheel for Vermont economy. But what I'm thinking right now is that we need to recognize there's a lot of food insecurity in Vermont, in New England, as the pandemic demonstrated. So how do we produce all the calories we need, knowing where they came from, knowing the farmers, knowing the quality of land stewardship happening? So I would say no. Should we focus only on sort of upscale niche craft products? No, it's a good market. Vermont benefits from it. But I think we need to go broader than that to look at how we feed ourselves all the kinds of calories we need.
Great. And Robin, you also partnered with the Vermont Land Trust and Audubon on habitat restoration. Why is that a critical part of your model?
It's a critical part of our model, as this diagram shows. It builds our ecological ecosystem. It removed invasive plants, it replanted native species, and it created a habitat for pollinators and birds, which are critical to growing crops, as you know, and growing produce and growing flowers. So having a viable ecosystem is critical on a farm. We actually have 2 apiaries on our farm which benefit from the habitat restoration.
Great. So in 30 seconds, Will, a key element of success that you've learned over the decades of innovation.
One key element of success, um, find the wave of opportunity or create it, and then learn how to ride it, probably is a key. Related to that is value. What your values are matter, and if your values contribute to a vague concept of the common good, you're probably going to have more fun and do a better job.
Will Rapp, thank you so much, and Robin Jeffords for being with us today.
Thank you very much, Fran.
Thank you.
For more information on Earthkeep Farmcommon, you can visit their website, earthkeepfarmcommon.com. I'm Fran Stoddard. Thank you for joining us across the fence. Eat local and stay well.